in Shavasana, finding a comfortable place to lay on your back, letting your palms turn up and your feet relax open to either side as you start to come into your breath. Taking the first few minutes of our practice to make that connection between our breath and our body and our movements. Noticing how there isn't a complete stillness but still movement that's happening as you breathe in and as you breathe out. And whenever you feel ready, go ahead and stretch your arms up overhead. You might even hug your knees into your chest and take a little rock from side to side if that feels nice. And eventually we'll hug just one knee into the chest, taking a moment to explore any stretches you might like here. So some people like to rotate the ankle around or even start to make circles around that hip joint. You can hold on top of your shin or behind your leg, whatever feels comfortable. Moving in all directions. And whenever you feel complete there, we'll set that foot down on the ground and just allow the knee to relax open to one side. And some people even like to place one hand on their heart and one hand on their belly here in this reclining tree. It's coming back into contact with the breath and the movement it makes in your body. Ready, we'll bring that knee back into center and take a nice long full body stretch again before hugging both knees back in and enjoying another little rock from side to side, getting that little massage across the lower back and maybe even rocking your head if you like that. And when you're ready, we'll draw the other leg in, once again holding the shin or behind the thigh and taking some stretches at the ankle and at the hip joint. I sometimes like to place my opposite hand out to the side for a little extra stability. And when you feel complete on this side, we'll place that foot back down and allow the knee to open. Once again, you're free to place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly for a few breaths. We'll bring our knee back into center and take that nice long full body stretch again before drawing both knees back in. You might explore that little rock or maybe start to make some circles around the lower back here. You're free to even separate your knees a little bit if you'd like. And then we'll start to hug one knee in again, this time pressing the opposite leg back and option to hover it above the ground. We'll start to make some bicycling motions here now, so pressing one foot out as you hug the other foot in and taking a full breath before switching to the other side. And if you feel that you need a little bit more support here for your head, neck, or shoulders, you're always free to take one hand to rest at the back of the head, or you could even rest your head completely down on the ground if you prefer. Just noticing how that feels for your lower back as you change the position of your head. looking for length all the way through the crown, keeping some space between your chin and your chest. And then we'll bring the knees in for a rest. Feel free to take some more circles for the lower back or simply give yourself a hug. And then we'll start to place the feet flat to the floor, bringing the arms overhead, preparing for a little rolling bridge here. So hugging the belly button in as you take an inhale and exhaling to press your palms down by your sides as you send your hips to the sky. Lower your hips as you inhale and bring the arms overhead, and exhale to lift again, pressing the arms back down. So start to find a little flow with your breath here, knowing that you can take the arms out of the equation and simply lift and lower the hips if you prefer. Trying a few rounds at your pace. And after you've done a few, maybe one or two more, we'll eventually allow the hips to come down to the mat. Let the bottoms of our feet come to touch and relax our knees open to either side for a little reclining butterfly stretch. And once again, if you liked it in the beginning of class, this is a nice chance to bring one hand to your heart and one hand to your belly. And take a moment to find your breath again. Once you've enjoyed a few breaths here, we'll bring the knees together, and this time we'll send both feet to the sky, finding ourselves in a little waterfall. Preparing to drop one leg at a time now, pressing up through the ball of one foot as you start to lower the opposite leg, keeping the leg as long as feels comfortable for you, knowing that you can always bend the knee if you'd like, or come back to those bicycle stretches. Making the range of motion whatever feels right. Dropping the leg a little or a lot. Seeing if you can make that connection with your breath as you go. Whenever you feel even on both sides, we'll go ahead and hug the knees back in again. And this time we'll start to come into a reclining twist here to get a nice little stretch. So when you're ready, drop both knees over to one side. And you might even rest your hand on the top of that knee. Some people like to turn their head to the opposite side for a little additional stretch. Know that you can support your legs here with a pillow or blanket if you'd like. And after you've stayed there for a few breaths, we'll come through center and take that same stretch on the other side. Letting the body get soft and easy for a few breaths. And when you feel complete here, we'll bring our knees back into center. This time setting ourselves up for a little side-to-side knee drop. So bending the knees so that the knees are centered over your hips and your ankles in line with your knees. We'll start to drop both knees over to one side, lowering them as far as you feel comfortable, that you're still moving with control. Think about keeping your opposite shoulder pinned to the mat. And begin to slowly move from side to side. Once again, making that connection with your breath. Exhaling as you drop the knees down and inhaling to bring them back up to center. And we'll move until you feel even and complete on both sides. And then we'll come back to center and place both feet flat to the mat. This time when you place your feet, go ahead and walk them about as wide as the mat and gently windshield wiper your knees over to one side and then the other. Back and forth a few times to take some rest. And eventually we'll take a nice long full body stretch here. Reaching the fingertips up overhead and the legs down long, preparing for some roll-ups. So we'll flex our feet here, engaging the muscles in the legs as we lift our bodies all the way up, taking a big stretch up to the sky. And then on an exhale, go ahead and fold forward, enjoying a breath or two here in this fold. Just beginning to soften the backs of the legs, maybe stretching the toes. And then we'll start to come back to seated. So you can move from seated to fold, or you might come all the way back down to the ground, taking that full body stretch before flexing the feet, exhaling and coming all the way back up. You can come back into that stretch if you'd like. Once again, coming halfway down and halfway up, or all the way down and all the way up. It's your choice. Whatever you decide to work with today, go ahead and try a few more rounds here. If you're enjoying the stretch today, you might even just stay in that fold for a few breaths. Needing a little extra rest today, you might even just stay reclined on the ground for a few breaths. Eventually, we'll all come to meet each other in a forward fold for a breath or two before coming up to seated, and this time bending our knees, we'll place our feet flat on the mat. You can hold behind your legs here and take a few rounds of gentle cat and cow stretch, flexing your spine, looking up, and then taking your tailbone back, bringing your heart forward, rounding the spine and flexing the spine. And eventually we'll make our way to a nice neutral seated position. So finding that length from your crown to your tail. See if you can start to float one foot up at a time, moving back and forth a time or two, maintaining that length as you go without collapsing into that C curve. We'll try a few times until you feel even. And then And just like we did from our backs, we'll start to bring the bottoms of our feet together and let our knees come open to either side. Feeling free to stay seated up nice and tall or add a little hinge forward from the waist if you prefer. We'll stay here for a few breaths, softening the muscles. And then we'll make our way back up to seated. Once again, setting ourselves up with that length through the spine, holding behind the thighs or on top of the shins. And this time you can go back to lifting one leg at a time, or you might try to lift both legs, gently tapping the toes down and bringing them back up. Just like before, seeing if we can avoid that C curve coming into the spine. Feeling an engagement in and up through the belly. And after you've tried a few rounds of those, coming back into that seated butterfly stretch. Staying tall or hinging forward. Settling into any stretch that feels nice. And after a few breaths, we'll meet each other back in that nice, tall, seated posture. Placing the feet flat and finding that length through the spine. So this time maybe trying a modified boat or boat posture, lifting both legs and finding that balance across the sacrum. And you can keep your hands resting on your legs or extend them overhead. You can go back to lifting and lowering the legs, one or both. And whenever you've had enough here, you can come back to find yourself some rest in that seated fold. And then we'll start to make our way up, and we'll turn to face the wide edge of the mat, coming into a wide-legged seated stretch. So separating the heels as far as feels comfortable. Doesn't have to be the widest stretch you've ever had. We'll take a moment to sit up nice and tall here, pressing the tail down and the crown up, relaxing the shoulders, and then spreading our fingertips out to either side. Sitting here for a few breaths, just noticing all of the muscles it takes to sit up nice and tall here. And then we'll flex the feet. We'll start to take a twist now, bringing our opposite pinky to our opposite pinky toe. Coming nice and tall through center, sitting all the way up before taking that twist to the other side. And we'll continue to move with our breath from side to side a few more times. Even in both directions, we'll come back to neutral center. We'll draw the legs in and give them a little shake. You might circle your ankles or even take a fold. And then we'll start to work our way over to a tabletop. So taking a moment to get there and place your wrists under your shoulders and your knees under your hips. Press out through one leg, sending the foot back. Knowing you can keep just the leg lifted, or you might start to send your opposite fingertips out in front of you, finding some spinal balance here. Keeping that belly pulled in, and taking a breath or two before letting it go. Setting yourself up to try on the other side, sending one leg out. choosing if you'd like to try the opposite fingertips on this side. Keeping your gaze nice and soft and neutral at the ground in front of you. And after a few breaths on that side, letting it go. We'll take a stretch here now in between. So tucking your toes, you could lift your hips to the sky for downward facing dog. Or you could keep your knees down and press your hips back towards your heels for a child's posture. And if you do come into that downward facing dog, you might try stretching the legs out here, maybe bending one knee and bringing the opposite heel down to the ground, pedaling a few times or switching the hips from side to side if you like. Eventually, we'll all meet each other in that child's posture, letting the knees come down, taking them as wide as you like before bringing your hips back over your heels. And we'll take a moment to stretch out the wrists if you'd like, so opening and closing the fists a few times or circling them in either direction or both. Eventually we'll make our way back to that tabletop, and if you've had your knees wide, take a moment to bring them back in, finding them underneath your hips and finding that length through your spine before setting up for another round of spinal balance. So sending that first leg back, option to bring the opposite fingertips forward, and this time if you'd like to add a crunch here, we'll hug our elbow in towards the knee as we draw everything in towards the midline, and then we'll send it all back out long. So exhaling to hug it in and inhaling to stretch it out, knowing you can always bring that hand back down and do just the leg here. Trying one or two more with your breath at your pace. And then we'll come down to find a little rest, feeling free to come back into that child's posture or send the hips back up to find a downward facing dog for a few breaths. And then of course we'll try it on the other side. So when you're ready, make your way back to that tabletop. And we'll send the other leg back this time. Once again, you could just do the leg or you could send the opposite arm out. And if you liked it on the other side, feel free to add that crunch. Really stretching out long and really hugging everything in tight. And eventually we'll let that go, coming back to center and taking rest in either that child's posture or once again lifting the hips for downward facing dog. And then we'll slide our bodies out to a plank position. So lowering the hips and finding that length through the spine. And then feeling free to lower your knees here as well. We'll start to press back into child's posture or downward facing dog. Bringing the hips forward again on an inhale and exhaling to send the hips back. So moving from that child's posture to modified plank or tucking the toes and lifting the hips and coming back to downward facing dog and forward to that high plank. Stay with that flow of your breath here and move back and forth a few more times in each direction, or come to find a little bit more rest. So we'll land back in that plank or modified plank, and we'll start to prepare for a side plank. Taking one hand to the center of the mat as you open up, lifting the opposite fingertips. Knee can be down or toes can be lifted. After a full breath, we'll come back through center and make our way to the other side, taking a similar option here. And then eventually we'll come back to center. This time we'll all lower our knees and press back into that child's posture before walking our hands in towards us this time and finding our way into hero. Stacking the shoulders over the hips and moment to reconnect with your breath here. We'll lift our bodies into a high kneeling position, preparing for gate now. So stretching one leg out, we'll take our opposite arm out and place the palm down underneath the shoulder. Take your gaze up now as you lift your fingertips. Option to lift those toes up off the ground as well. And then we'll lower that leg, lifting the other hand and sweeping the fingertips to the opposite wall. We'll start to move back and forth a few times now, lifting the leg and coming to gate, and then lowering the leg and taking that side stretch. Move a few times with your breath in each direction. Come to find that gate and hold it here for a few extra breaths before drawing the knee in and coming back to rest in hero. Of course, we'll try it on the other side. So when you're ready, make your way back up to that high kneeling posture, and this time we'll stretch the other leg out. Placing the opposite hand down to the mat underneath the shoulder, we'll send our fingertips up again. Option to lift the toes if you like it. We'll start to make our way into that side stretch, lowering the leg and sliding the fingertips down as we sweep the opposite arm up and over. You might even lift your gaze. Coming back when you're ready. And once again, moving a few times with your own breath in each direction. Stay in that gate for a few extra breaths this last time around before we all meet each other in that hero again. Drawing the knee in, finding the shoulders over the hips, and reconnecting. And we'll make our way back into downward facing dog. So when you're ready, tuck your toes and send your hips back up. And this time we'll stretch one leg up high into the sky, reaching out long, and then on an exhale, we'll draw that knee in towards our elbow. Stretching out long on an inhale, three-legged dog. Exhaling, knee to elbow. And we'll try this a few times on one side. And the last time, maybe even holding for an extra breath as you hug that knee in. Good. Before stretching it out and lowering the knees, pressing back into child's posture. Ground down for a breath or two before finding your way back up into that downward facing dog. We'll try on the other side now. Inhaling to stretch a leg out long. Exhaling to bring the knee to the outside of the elbow. Keep moving with your breath now. Know that you can always come back to that spinal balance. On this last time, bring the knee in and hover for an extra breath if it feels okay before lowering your knees and taking your rest. And then we'll make our way all the way onto our bellies, lowering yourself down, preparing for a little locust. So your arms can be back by your side or extended out in front of you. We'll take a big inhale to hug the belly button in and exhale to lift. Lifting your heart, lifting your feet. So begin to lift and lower at your own pace here. And of course, you could lift and lower opposite arm and leg as well if you'd like to try that instead. And then eventually we'll come down to rest. Place your palms under your shoulders and press your hips all the way back. Or send your hips to the sky for another downward facing dog, your choice. And we'll start to walk our hands in towards us this time. Rolling ourselves all the way up to stand and taking a nice big stretch up before folding forward again. Walking the hands back out to find that plank or modified plank. And then coming all the way back in. So you could drop your knees back down and move from that modified plank to that child's posture if you prefer. Or you could float back and forth again between that plank and down dog. Or you can keep floating through a few more of these full walkout planks. And know that you can bend your knees as much as you'd like as you walk your hands back in. Coming up nice and slow, rolling all the way up and taking that big stretch. Try a few more here at your own pace. And the next time you come out to that plank or modified plank, we'll hold it here. Option to come into another side plank now. Once again, opening up onto one side for a breath or two. And then coming back through center and over to the other side for a similar side plank. Taking any modifications you liked the first time around. And then this time, we'll start to walk our feet in towards our hands. Coming to the front of our mats and taking that halfway heart lift before folding in completely. Enjoying a few heavy breaths right here. Letting the crown of your head draw down towards the earth, taking any variation of a fold that you like, or shaking out the head very gently. And then we'll bend our knees and make our way to seated here. Walking your hands back by your hips or however else you like to get there, we'll find ourselves seated on the mat with our feet flat to the floor again. And if you liked it before, you might take some more of those modified cat and cow stretches from here. Eventually finding your way into a nice tall seated neutral posture. And then just like before, you can lift one leg at a time. You can lift and lower both legs. You could take a modified boat, or you could start to work your way into Navasana, boat posture. Exploring any variation of that or moving through it a few times before hugging our knees in, and this time coming all the way down to the mat. Once you arrive there, you could take that gentle rocking or even a happy baby. Separate your knees. And then we'll hug just one leg in again, sending the other leg out and setting ourselves up for another round of bicycle stretch. Using your breath to guide you as you draw one knee in and press the other leg out. And this time, if you'd like, you might start to press both legs out at the same time, taking the arms up overhead for a little double leg stretch. Know that you can always go back to that bicycle if you change your mind. You can support your neck by resting one hand behind the head if you prefer that as well. And eventually we'll all come down for rest. Taking any little stretch that feels nice. And then once again we'll place our feet back down on the mat and stretch our fingertips up overhead. We'll start to come into another bridge here, and you could lift and lower like before, or this time you might lift the hips and hold here, and you have an option to take a nice stretch for your shoulders as well by wiggling them underneath the body and lifting the chest. Some people like to clasp their hands together. Keep pressing through the heels, keep drawing your knees together, your thighs together. When you're ready to let that go, lower your hips back down. And once again, we'll revisit that reclining butterfly here, letting the knees relax open, letting the feet come together. Feeling your body breathe. Back to that waterfall again, just like in the beginning of class, pressing both feet up to the sky. And just like before, you could start to lower one leg and then the other. Or this time you might even try lowering both legs and taking both arms up overhead for a little jackknife stretch. So again, you don't have to come all the way down with the heels. You can make that range of motion as big or as small as you'd like. And you could always come back to one leg or find some support behind the neck by resting your fingertips to the back of the head. And when you feel complete here, we'll all come down for a rest, relaxing the head, neck, and shoulders down and taking any stretches you like. You might even revisit bringing your feet back to the mat and windshield wipering your knees over to one side and then the other. Staying for a breath or two, or moving with each breath, it's your choice. Eventually, we'll come to stretch ourselves back into Shavasana, just like when we started, extending your legs out long and turning your palms to face up. We'll begin to find some stillness in our body now, preparing to enjoy a few minutes of silent relaxation, letting all of the muscles become easy and soft, feeling the back of your head become heavy into the mat, relaxing all of the muscles in your face and your neck. Feeling the heaviness of your shoulders and your upper back resting on the ground. Following with your awareness down the chest and the arms and the belly and the hands. Letting everything become soft and easy and at ease. Relax your hips, your legs, and your feet. Enjoy a few minutes of silence. ready, begin to deepen your breath, bringing your awareness back into your body, back into this moment. And start to take any gentle movements or stretches that you'd like to wake your body up again. Stretching from your fingers to your toes, or anything else you'd like. And eventually make your way over to one side to reflect for a few moments in an infant's posture. Taking what you need from this practice, preparing to carry your yoga off the mat. When you feel complete here, make your way back to seated. Find any comfortable seated position that you'd like. We'll share a final breath together, taking a big inhale to stretch our fingertips up, and an exhale to bring our palms into heart center. Bowing our gaze in gratitude that we were able to share this practice together. The light in me sees and honors the light in each of you. Namaste.